Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So I'm coming to you, I'm still in Springfield. I am in my new truck. Here's a picture of it. I'm not a big fan of like the truck tour thing, where people show you around the inside. And candidly, moving trucks is like moving houses, except it's like moving houses to a house that's like you same square footage, but totally laid out different. And so I right now, even though I'm gonna get out here about midnight and take a load up to Nebraska for delivery tomorrow morning, I'm still in that, you show up at your friend's new house with some pizza and beer the evening that they've moved in that day, and there's just boxes and everything all over, and you just make like some tables out of like the big boxes that haven't been unpacked. That's kind of the stage I'm at right now, where they don't really have any lamps out, so the only light you have is like the overhead light in the hall, and you're just sitting around, and that's where I'm at. I got everything in my truck, and I was like, man, I had a lot of stuff in my Freightliner, and people are like, oh yeah, the Peterbilts are bigger. Well, they are. It feels bigger on the inside, but it doesn't feel like it has any more storage. So, I got to start utilizing. I got to rethink some things, and it's going to be a learning process. But I basically have stuff arranged so that if I have to stop fast, I'm not going to like get hit with everything. So I'm going to get back on the road. I had this, so Jim C., and you should watch his videos. He might actually be on home time by the time this video comes out. But anyway, he was talking about training in this environment. He was talking about, the money and stuff like that. And I don't really think he's focused on the money. And, that's not a huge focus for me. It's a piece of it, right? But what I wanted to do, and what I'm hoping to do, is speak to people that maybe haven't gotten on a trainer's truck yet, or maybe they haven't come to Prime yet. And I wanted to kind of share some ideas or some thoughts, and let people use this information how they will. And let me start by saying that I have had trainees on my truck that it didn't work out for any number of reasons, right? I had two trainees that just felt like they didn't want to drive a truck, and that had that really had nothing to do with the relationship that I had with them. It's just that was a decision they made, and I was I respected their decisions and stuff. Even though I think both of them would have been pretty proficient truck drivers, because they weren't scaring me. They might have been scaring themselves, but they weren't scaring me. But other situations, it just doesn't work out. And it's really easy to say, well, it's a give and take. You got to meet people halfway and stuff like that. But I want to just put this out there, and I'm always happy to hear people's opinions, and people could tell me that I'm wrong, but somebody that's a driver at Prime that's certified to train, or any company where they're a trainer, right? For whatever reason, the company that they're with thinks they're qualified, and I guess you'd say, I don't know if worthy is a correct word, but they're qualified and okay to train. Now, Does that mean that they're going to be a good trainer? No, we already know that, right? There's some people that train that, you know, they're just not going to be any good at it. But that doesn't mean that every trainer's like that. And the thing that's kind of I've kind of noticed of late is I've seen a few videos where people that are in PSD or waiting on trainers, they're like, you know, are these guys just doing this for money? And when I say guys, I mean drivers, you know, women too. Are they just doing it for the money? Because I don't want a trainer that's just doing it for the money. And I'm like, I get that, right? But nobody's out here running a charity. And here's the corollary to that, though. You know, you may not want a trainer that's just doing it for the money. Although if they're doing a quality job, their motivation shouldn't really matter. In other words, you know, I was in the military with guys that were really good at their jobs, but they kind of pretty much hated the military. And it was just a means to an end for them, right? Like they did it, but and they were very good at it, but that's because they would have been very good at anything. That's just the type of people they were. But then they were going to just do their best until it was time for them to leave, and then they were going to leave. And so I think that motivation is not necessarily a big deal. Like if somebody is a quality trainer, if their only motivation is money, okay, that's fine, right? Because they're performing a service, right? It's their job. Maybe they're not looking to make friends. They're not trying to impress anybody. They just know stuff and they're willing to share it with somebody, and you know, they're willing to share their truck with somebody in exchange for money, right? They're just doing it for filthy lucre. And you know, that if that's all, then it's okay, because as long as you get a quality trainer, it shouldn't matter. But here's the corollary to that person who is just doing it for the money. I feel like there are trainees that, you know, they just look at the TNT process as just some, you know, crappy part of life that they got to get through to get to their goal, right? And it's really easy to gloss over the fact that, you know, if you're that TNT trainee, you have a guaranteed salary that your trainer doesn't even have, right? Your trainer does not have a guaranteed salary. In fact, they're not guaranteed to make a dime. They could be, you know, in the hole every week and you still get paid, right? And think about that for a second, right? So like if they're just doing it for the money, but you're the one getting a guaranteed salary, you're getting a check every week that doesn't have, you know, parentheses around the amount. Parentheses, by the way, for in accounting means negative, right? It means subtract, or a dash in front of it, you know, then they're really just doing something and it's not meeting their needs. Okay? Now, if you combine that with a trainee who's not doing everything that they can to be cooperative and interested and, you know, showing a desire to learn, and being like super motivated to know everything that the trainer's willing to teach them, then you can understand how a trainer might be like, yeah, like, why am I doing this? This person isn't all they want to do is get through 50,000 miles, and they want to, you know, do what I do basically, right? But they're not willing to put in the work. Because here's the thing, I know from having a trainee on my truck that eventually, you know, within not too long, I ended up wanting off my truck, and I guess the feeling was mutual, because that person didn't want to do what I said, didn't like how I talked to her. You know, I feel like the first trainer or earlier trainers were just like, yeah, just drive. You know, like they didn't care. They were doing it for the money, and it was just like, just drive the truck, right? And you know, if that's the kind of trainer you want, then that's the kind of training that you'll get, which is to say nothing. Because driving a truck down the highway is the easiest part of the job. I mean, it could still turn into a disaster, but it's pretty much the easiest part of the job. I could take somebody, and I'm totally serious about this, I could take somebody that has never driven a semi before, like doesn't have a CDL, knows nothing about the truck. I could be on the side of the road in Omaha, Nebraska, and we could get on the road heading west, and I guarantee they could drive 500 miles without a disaster, with very little input from me, right? I'd be like, yeah, this is the gear shift, it's an automatic transmission, that's the accelerator, there's a brake pedal. They wouldn't need to know anything else. And I'd be like, yeah, just look in your mirrors periodically, make sure the trailer's still back there and it's between the lines, right? I mean, because I feel like I see truck drivers that are basically that proficient on the road anyway. So if that's what you're looking for, you might find it. But, you know, I'm not sure why you would want that, because those are the same people that, you know, when they do get out on their own, it's a disaster for them, right? In other words, they were willing to take all the shortcuts just to like get through 50,000 miles, which I acknowledge is a long time, but they were willing to take all the shortcuts. All they wanted to do was pile up miles. But then when they get out on their own, there are a ton of things they're not any good at, or maybe don't even know. And now, especially if they've leased a truck, because Prime will let you do that, right? Prime will let you dig a hole, you know, and jump into it. They lease a truck, and next thing you know, they owe $6,000 to the company, and they got no visibility to getting a positive paycheck for the next, 6-8 weeks. They quit. Right? And you say, well, why did that happen? Well, because they didn't know all the little things that make this a true job. Like we hear the jokes about steering wheel holders, but the steering wheel holding part of the job is the easy part. It's all the other stuff, whether it's paperwork, whether it's, getting lumpers paid, whether it's properly securing your load, whether it's, picking the right road to go down, whether it's having the trailer and, hooking a trailer properly, or having your tandems in the right location, figuring out how to, navigate your way around the country, knowing what to do at weigh stations. There's a million little things. Executing turns so you don't kill pedestrians and tear up phone poles with your trailer. There's a lot of stuff. Knowing how to back, just because you backed in between some cones doesn't mean you know how to back. And, and then you're going to do all this stuff, a lot of these things you're going to do in the middle of the night in a place that's chaotic. I mean, that is very common, especially in refrigerated. So why would you not just take advantage of that time and be the most cooperative, the most, curious, read the owner's manual. Like act like this is an opportunity to soak in knowledge, and not worry about what the motivation of your trainer is. I had somebody come on my truck who had a previous trainer, and that person left her trainer's truck like at a truck stop because she wasn't being taught. And she recognized that. Turns out her mom had been a real trucker back in the day with big long hood Pete and everything. And so she knew a fair amount about trucking. She also had, driven other kinds of commercial vehicles. But she was immediately recognized that the guy that was her trainer really wasn't going to train her, didn't care about training her. He was doing it just for the money, but he didn't want to train her. So she packed up her stuff, and the truck pulled into a truck stop in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and she got off the truck and called her mom to come get her from Missouri. Now that's a person who demanded to be trained and wanted, she wasn't there just to get the miles or just to get, a steady paycheck. And it turned out, I trained her and, pushed her, and she's turned out to be a great driver. I talked to her recently. We saw each other at Springfield a few weeks ago. She's in the tanker division. I don't know jack about tankers, but it's a modest success story. But if you don't want to be trained, be honest about that, and maybe don't come to Prime, because people come to Prime because they think it's like hitting the lottery in a lot of cases. They pick Prime over other companies. I mean, there are a lot of companies where you get a CDL, man, they'll be like, here's some keys, go start delivering crap all over America. Oh yeah, we're going to pair you up with another guy who just got his CDL. Carry on smartly. Like, there are plenty of companies that'll do that for you, but not Prime. So if Prime's model doesn't work for your personality, for what you want, it's not going to matter who you get as a trainer, right? It's going to be a problem. And if you happen to get somebody like me that's not just going to push the I believe button and go in the back and sleep while you're driving, even though you've only driven around the block during your CDL test, I mean, you're just taking a chance you're going to get somebody like me. You're not going to get somebody that just wants you to rack up the miles and is just doing it for the money. Or heck, you're just going to get somebody that is doing it for the money, and things are a little slow now, but they're willing to teach. But if they're willing to teach and you're not willing to learn, or it's just you're not that interested in it because you think I'm just going to get this done and get my CDL and go to work for Uncle Scruffy's trucking company, and they're going to pay me 92% of line haul, and my life's going to be great, and I'm going to get to drive a Volvo back and forth across the country at 79 miles an hour, then Prime probably isn't the place for you. And I just ask you, be honest with yourself, right? Understand your own limitations. Be self-aware. And if this is not something that you want to do and stick with it, then don't waste your time, but don't waste other people's time either. Because like I went to when I was on the staff at the Naval Academy, we used to have speakers come in, famous people, and come and talk to the midshipmen. And one speech that I always remember is when Ross Perot, Ross Perot, he's a Naval Academy graduate, and I can't remember what class. He's passed away now, but he ran for president and everything. Had a big company, Perot Systems, that he sold, I think I think he sold Pro Systems to General Motors, maybe. But, you know, he's very wealthy, successful businessman. But he said something to the midshipman that's always stuck with me. And he said this. He said, you know, you need to understand how lucky you are. But more importantly, meaning that you're attending the United States Naval Academy. But more importantly, you need to understand that you owe it to people that couldn't get in the Naval Academy because you did. You owe it to them to work hard, because if they came here, they would be working hard. So if you come here and you're slacking off, because, you know, some people are just really good and they don't have to try very hard. And you know, his point was, you owe it to the people that sent you here, meaning the taxpayers, but also the people who didn't get in here. And that's what I would say to people that are coming to Prime. You know, I'm not trying to make Prime sound like it's the Naval Academy of trucking, but it's a privilege to come to Prime. Prime has higher hiring standards than other trucking companies. I don't think that's, you know, that's widely known, okay? And they're taking less people than they would. But if you take up a slot that maybe somebody else would have filled, but you were just maybe on the paper, you were a little bit better, you know, don't do that. Because if this isn't what you want anyway, why keep another person, potentially keep another person from doing what they want to do? You know, go to the other company that will let you just take off with another CDL holder and drive all over America, you know, and they don't really care. And you're going to be making the big bucks with them. You know, because you do have to, you know, the 50,000 miles, I'm not sure I love that. It's a long time. It's a lot of miles. But, you know, sometimes when you want something that's a good situation, you got to pay your dues. Like I tell my kids, you got to suffer to be successful, right? Almost nobody that's successful hasn't suffered, that hasn't had to do some heavy lifting. So, you know, come to Prime if that's you and you want this. But if you're kind of just like non-committal, disinterested, nonchalant, please just go somewhere else, right? You know, you could be successful somewhere else with those attributes. But I think it's, you know, you're just making things harder on everybody by picking Prime. And unfortunately, it's hard to screen for that. So I'm basically asking people to self-identify here. You know, but know that when you get on somebody's truck, you know, your ability to successfully complete or quickly complete that 50,000 miles is going to be based on your ability to get along with that person and do what you're asked to do and follow instructions. Because ironically, even when you're on your own, you got to follow instructions. And the penalties for not following instructions when you're on your own is money, right? Like, you have a claim on a load and it's your fault because you didn't follow instructions, you know, you're going to be having one of those weeks with a bunch of parentheses around numbers. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. And if you see the truck, say hi. I got to admit the paint and the decals are kind of growing on me. And you may say, well, didn't you choose it? And the answer is yes, I did choose it, but I didn't. When I ordered the truck, I didn't realize that the green was going to be so light, I guess I'd say. But it's starting to grow on me a little bit. So anyway, thanks to everybody that did say hi to me over the past few days when I've been here in Springfield. And, you know, had a good time, but I'm ready to get back on the road. I got home time coming up in, I don't know, 12, 14 days. And, yeah, then I'm just going to be running after that. So anyway, talk to you soon. Bye.